Welcome to the Mendoza Podcast, financial talk that makes sense. I'm your Illinois State Controller, Susana Mendoza, and I want to help answer all the questions you have about money matters, but we're maybe afraid to ask. We're going to learn a lot and have some fun together. Hi, we're back again with another informative and hopefully fun episode. Today we're talking about all things insurance. Can we make insurance fun?
Easily, hands down.
And my guest today is Illinois Department of Insurance Deputy Director of Consumer Education and Protection, Corbin McGhee. Thanks so much for joining us, Corbin.
Oh my gosh, thanks for having me today. I've been looking forward to this chat.
Awesome. Well, let's have a little bit of fun.
Let's do it.
I'm going to start you off with a question.
Okay.
First, can you tell us a little bit about the Department of Insurance and what the agency actually does?
Yeah, so it's funny. I've been out in the field. That's a part of a lot of my job is to go out in the field. And it's interesting how many consumers I hear from who have maybe heard of the department, but aren't really sure what we do. And
trust me, we're the controller's office,
Oh.
the least known office in all of government
hey,
existence.
you're the CFO. You got.
Well, thanks for knowing, right? Yes, but I always
Yeah.
say we're the most important office no one knows about. So trust me, I get it. Keep going.
I did ask my team today. I was like, controller or comptroller? Which one is it? And
It's like potato, take a pick.
But yeah, so I go out in the field. I hear folks talk about saying, "Oh, I didn't know about the Department of Insurance. I don't know. What do you all do?" And one of our biggest goals is to just get out there and educate consumers, to protect consumers. That is a big part of what I do. Go out and I talk to consumers about all topics, all product lines. And I know I'll say product lines a lot. When I'm saying that, I mean like the big buckets of insurance, like health,
Sure.
auto, home, pet, travel, like all of those we regulate at the department. We also look into financial solvency of companies. We look at market activity. We have the pension team located in the department. We have workers' comp. So we do a lot of work, but first and foremost, we're really there for the consumer. And we have housed within the department a help center, a complaint line. So if any consumer in Illinois is having an issue with any product line of insurance, they can reach out to us, file a complaint, and we have analysts there to investigate the issue and hopefully get them an answer.
You know, on that point, your office does get a lot of consumer complaints. So walk us through what some of the most popular complaints are that people call you with.
Oh yeah, like I said, we regulate all product lines of insurance, and so we get various things on a daily basis. Say like we get roofing reimbursement, so someone's roof was damaged by a tornado and they're not getting the reimbursement amount they want, or someone signed up for a universal life policy and they weren't adequately paying into it, and then their policy lapsed when they were ready to look at it in their retirement. We have prior authorization denials with health insurance. We have step therapy. So there's just a variety of complaints on all types of insurance that folks are coming to us with, and we're just going to do our best to try to help them out and get them an answer.
And how long do these resolutions usually take when people call?
It really depends. There are some health insurances that we don't have a regulation over. So that would be like ERISA plans, which are ones that health insurance governed by the federal government. That's a lot of health insurance you get through a job or an employer, most of those. We don't regulate Medicare and Medicaid, but we will always be there to give someone an answer. Maybe it's to point them in the right direction, and that can sometimes take within a few weeks, maybe a few months, depending on how big that issue is they're having and what they need solved.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm glad that we don't have things like wildfires here in Illinois or hurricanes, right? We're the greatest state. We're like perfectly positioned, have railroads that work, have great transportation hubs, no earthquakes, rolling blackouts, have some issues, right? We all have our issues, but I think it could be worse, right? No matter how hard it is, which it sounds like you guys definitely have your hands full and lots of issues to deal with regarding insurance, but remember, it could always be worse. So we're in a good spot.
We are in a good spot. I mean, I personally love living in Illinois for that reason. Just it feels like we aren't dealing with some of the major things we're hearing about, like wildfires. We do have those sneaky convective storms that sweep through. But for the most part, it's a great state to live in. And our Department of Insurance is really strong and really helpful with consumers.
Awesome. Well, we could easily do an episode on like all the different types of insurance that you guys handle. But let's start with the one that people are most confused about. You want to walk us through that? Like, what's the difference between term and whole life insurance, or is there some other insurance that people are super confused about?
Oh yeah, so life insurance, let's just start off and give it a little definition. So life insurance is when you want to take a policy out that when you pass away, a death benefit or a lump sum of money would be given to a beneficiary that you designate. And I think let's like give a situation to where most people come face to face with life insurance. You get a new job, your employer says, congrats, welcome, we have a benefits package for you. And you're like, awesome. And you go and sign up for your health and everything. And then all of a sudden you get to a page, oftentimes they'll say, do you want to take out $10,000 of life insurance, a $10,000 death benefit? Either the employer will cover it, you may throw in a few bucks a month. But that's where a lot of us see life insurance, especially when we're first starting out in our careers.
So do lots of people take it when they're first starting off in their careers, or are they thinking, hey, what do I really need this for? Like, is it too expensive? Or
yeah, so
what are those? How much of an uptick do you see of like young people versus people start to get a little bit older and start thinking about life insurance?
That's a lot of what I'm getting out in the field about. I don't think that younger folks think about life insurance much because we're feeling invincible.
Of course,
we're
right?
feeling good.
Yeah.
We're not really thinking about the time we're going to pass. But it is so critical to get in at that younger age with life insurance because you have longer to live, so your premium's going to be lower because you're younger.
Once you lock in that premium, does it stay with you, or do you have to? Do they keep revisiting your premiums as you get older? Given that the older you get, things start breaking down.
So that's actually a great. You asked me about term versus whole life. Term, it's a premium that you'll pay for a certain amount of time. So say I want to take out a life insurance policy just for 10 years. My dad did that. He was a consultant. My mom was a single mom. He wanted to just have a little extra protection on our family while he was traveling across the U.S. Whole life is a policy you would get out for your whole life, and you pay a consistent premium the day you take it out for the rest of your life, and over time that may even add some cash value to your policy. But if people are looking for that consistent, same price they pay, it would be a whole life policy.
And that never goes up in price, even if you have medical issues or stuff pop up?
That shouldn't. If there's certain types of, we could go down a whole rabbit hole episode about different types of life insurance and whole life insurance. There are some that have flexible premiums, but for the most part, like the standard whole life, you should just be paying the same amount for the rest of your life. And the younger you do it, the more early you're contributing to your bucket. And so with that means that you're going to be having to pay a little bit less.
You mentioned like you can pull money out of it or make money off of it. So walk me through that a little bit.
So if you do a whole life policy, you can accumulate some cash value over time. And sometimes that value, that chunk of money, can be utilized to pay for your premium. So some folks will get to where they have enough cash value and then they'll just have the policy almost like pay for itself,
wow,
which is great, and you don't really have to think about it much again. Sometimes you can borrow that money from the company as like a mini loan, but that value, you also some whole life policies. They'll have dividends. They're invested into the stock market, so you can receive some dividends from the company. So there's just lots of different ways to utilize life insurance, and especially whole life. It has a lot of living benefits, things we can take advantage of. It's not just that death benefit, not just waiting for us to kick the bucket, preferably, but to really utilize while we're in our older age. And the nice part of life insurance too is you can add what are riders onto a life insurance policy. And think about that. I like to think of like a Stars or Showtime add-on to my cable.
Nice. Okay,
where you can
like
add on something for a little bit extra. You can add on a rider to your life insurance policy. For example, they have a long-term care rider. Say you're a little worried about affording long-term care. In the future, you can add that rider on and start chipping in now, and that insurance will kick in.
Well, it's like you're reading my mind because my next question was going to be about long-term care insurance. And I mean, is it a good idea for seniors, and when should they start thinking about getting that policy?
Yes. So long-term care policies did used to be sold at a few decades ago. We've seen, and I think most people have seen, that the cost of long-term care is just rising. With that, as the premiums are also rising a lot. And a lot of those plans, long-term care insurance plans, are not being sold in the state of Illinois anymore, but there are options I'd love for consumers to know about, which are those riders. If you get a whole life policy, you can add a long-term care rider onto it, and that will help you when you move into that part of your life. Again, look at this younger. I know the last thing we want to think about when we're in our 30s and 40s is this, but it's good to look at it now. Start now, and it will be easier then.
Yeah, like it's one of my biggest frustrations is trying to talk to young folks and convince them that the minute they start getting earned income, they should open up a Roth IRA.
Yep.
Do you have one?
I
You should have one. Go get
401k,
one tomorrow.
but I should do the Roth IRA. You're
Roth
right.
IRA.
You're right.
Like you can put up to $7,000 a month in it. I
Yep.
mean, a year, I should say. And every year, maybe they add a few more bucks that you qualify for, but you pay for this. You pay
Yep.
into this after taxes.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
it starts growing. You should just forget it exists. And trust me, we'll have another conversation when you hit 65 if I'm still around. But you're going to be so rich.
Oh yeah.
And you let your money work for you. But it's a similar principle here with the insurance, right? That the younger you get into it,
Yep.
the cheaper it's going to be, and the more of a benefit it could be for you, either from a financial perspective or, God forbid, when that day comes, right? Because
Yep.
age is actually a factor that works to your advantage or to your disadvantage. But
Yep.
when it comes to investments of money, the longevity is where you really stand to benefit. So
Yeah.
let me think of something else. Let's talk a little bit about healthcare,
Mm-hmm.
Can you provide 3 tips that people should think about when choosing what health insurance carrier they're going to pick?
Yeah.
It's always like, so what am I going to do?
There's so many options. There's so many like acronyms and words that are just. Sometimes we're not taught this stuff. We're not taught this stuff when we're younger, when we're in high school. But it's so important to know that when open enrollment comes around, when it's time for us to sign up for an insurance plan, the biggest advice I have for folks is to look it up, to not just see what is the lowest premium and just go with that. I know that sometimes that's the most obvious thing we want to do, but open up what they call their summary of benefits and coverage. That's what an insurer would provide you, and that's where you see how much is your copay going to be for a primary doctor, how much is it going to be for a secondary physician, how much, or a specialist, how much is it going to be to go to the emergency room. Look at those things for each plan and really think about where are you at health-wise, what doctors are you seeing, and that's another point is to also look at the provider network that a health insurer has. I like to think through every year, who's my care team? Who I have, maybe I have my primary care, but a dermatologist or a nephrologist, and I want to make sure are all of those folks.
I know you have a dermatologist because you have perfect skin.
Oh my gosh.
It's true.
Oh.
Look at your blushing. It works. It looks great. You're like glowing.
Thank you.
I'm jealous.
I have the skincare routine of just putting lotion on my face when I remember.
Now, you're lucky. Don't brag, okay? Don't brag, yes.
But yeah, so those are things you want to look into. You want to see are my doctor team going to be covered? Are they going to be considered out of network? Because all of a sudden you're going to need to find new doctors or you're going to be paying out of pocket. And so just spending time and asking for help. There are agents out there who their sole job is to help people find insurance. There are people like the Department of Insurance, but then also ask family or friends or coworkers or your HR and ask them to help you walk through that insurance so that my fear is when a consumer has an issue and doesn't realize they didn't have the coverage until afterward. And so
Yeah.
I just want to get to them now and make sure that they're with all their insurance looking at their coverages.
That's great. And, I gotta believe there's some trends out there that we probably should know about. I mean, do you see anything out there in the insurance field that is kind of happening? I'll give you an example. Those wildfires that happened in California. Do we see any ramifications of that in terms of premiums in people's home insurance prices, right? Given that even though there are no wildfires here in Illinois,
Yep.
when something is so catastrophic that really impacts the industry overall, do we all end up paying for that, even though it didn't happen in our home state?
Yeah, but the part of the question I can answer towards is that the department, we can't speculate as to one root cause for rising premiums, but we do see homeowners premiums rising. There's so many factors that can contribute to that, like the cost it takes to rebuild, the cost of materials to physically rebuild a home. What are your personal coverages you're asking for? If you have high limits, you're going to have a higher premium. And weather and climate related events are the increase in tornadoes or increase in convective storms. They're damaging more homes, so that's also impacting premiums. But you brought up a great question about trends and trends within the insurance space. last year, the state banned short-term limited duration plans. They passed the Healthcare Protection
What are those?
Act.
Like,
Those were
explain that
like,
to the audience.
those were like, we called them like junk plans. They're not really health insurance. They were sold for like 3-month periods or 6-month. And a lot of folks in their 20s were like, this is so cheap. This is great. I don't need to really worry. But then something would happen, like they would get diagnosed with something and the plan would rescind all coverage. So they don't cover pre-existing conditions. They don't cover much. So
scam plans.
Scammy.
Yes.
So scammy. And we banned those in the state.
What is it? Like, if it seems too good to be true, it is.
It is exactly that. And that's what they were, because you likely aren't going to find a healthcare premium for like $40 a month. Like that would be, that's what they were being sold for, and that's what was catching people's attention. Similar to those, we see these things rising up called association health plans. These are, they remind me so much of it, but they're not health insurance, but they're offered like the health insurance. Sometimes they are covered for a full year. Sometimes they are pricing them high enough that you would think that they are health insurance, and they are having these legitimate websites where you look at and you think you're signing up for a typical insurer.
What's that called? AHP?
An association health plan. Yeah.
So like a hot potato, don't touch it.
Yes. A hot potato, don't touch it. I'm going to start saying that one.
You'll get burned.
I'll bring
right?
a potato
You'll get burned
as a
by
visual.
It, so.
Yeah, and truly, these plans, they don't cover much of anything. It puts consumers in a bad spot because they're paying a lot out of pocket. And they're tricking by making us think, oh, this is legitimate, and it's not. So what I like to tell consumers, always look on the website and make sure that it says they are an ACA compliant plan or Affordable Care Act compliant. That law, the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, sets standards for insurance, and it makes sure to protect consumers from these types of things, so that you don't have your health care stripped if you get a pre-existing condition. You didn't ask for a pre-existing condition, so you shouldn't have your insurance taken away for that.
For sure.
So we want to make sure that consumers are using those ACA compliant plans. So that's the big trend I'm seeing that I just wanted to make a call out for.
No, that's great. I wasn't even aware of that. And so I think, like, most people aren't. They're just going about their lives, right? And that's the whole point about insurance, that you're going about your life and things happen. Right? And if you're not protected, then it becomes catastrophic. And it could bankrupt families, right? And we don't think about it in the moment, certainly not young people, because to your point, everybody felt invincible when they're young. But none of us are, right? It can happen to anybody at any time, including children, people in the prime of their life, adults in middle age, or our seniors, right? If you're lucky enough to make it that far, there's a whole lot of things that you had to go through along the way that you did have to rely on insurance. So it's really important. Not necessarily people loving to talk about this issue, but we have to do our homework on it. And if you're going to put your hard-earned money towards a product, to your point of how we started, make sure it's the best one with the best value.
And if you're going to sign a contract, because insurance is a contract, and so I am guilty of this. Nobody judge me out there, but I do not always read the fine print when it says to read the fine print before signing something online or using a website. Read the fine print of an insurance policy. You wanna know what that coverage is going to be. You want to see if there's anything in there, and sometimes it can be just a few words that can have the biggest impact on your coverage.
Totally.
And so read that fine print. Make sure you know what you're signing up for, because a lot of times we have enrollment in insurance happen at such monumental times in our lives, and it happens really fast. So I took out a mortgage, and the bank said, you need to get homeowners insurance to have this home, to have this mortgage. So I quickly just go and grab something, and and then I put it away, and dust collects.
Box,
yeah,
right?
I checked. I have coverage. Oh, you wouldn't believe the amount of things people just are thinking we're covered for, and we're not. And sometimes we just need to make sure we're reading that.
And it's not daunting, right? Because the documents are so long. I mean, truthfully, do you know anybody who actually, when they're online and they're applying for anything, you just scroll to the bottom and you hit, I have reviewed this message. I mean, I really don't know anybody that sits there and reads the whole thing, and that's how they get you.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they got Willy Wonka. If you saw the movie, he signed it that,
You
he did
lose.
not read the fine print, and that's what got him.
It's true, and it's
So-
I've probably signed my life away 3 times to different companies and I don't know it, so I'll find out soon. But it's all in that fine print. That's what we need to read. And if it's hard for you to read that fine print, or if there's a lot of confusing terms, utilize an agent. They are there to help,
For
and they're so
sure.
knowledgeable, and they know those coverage gaps that maybe you don't see.
Can people call your office if they have questions about that, or are a little daunted, or just
Yep.
don't know where to go? Do you help direct them to somebody that can help, or how does that work?
We do have that help center. We are happy to, if someone has a question, they can call, especially if you're having an issue with your insurance. First thing, if you're having an issue with your insurance, always first call your insurance. You never know. Sometimes it could be a quick fix, a little mistake. If after that call you're still feeling like this isn't, something's off, call us. Fill out a complaint form online. We are here to help you. And if you have a general question, on the complaints page, there is a general question submit form, and you can fill that out. And it might be we can help guide you in the place that will help you to get the answers you need.
And then how soon after people fill out a complaint do people call them back or whatever? Is that usually like 24, 48 hours, or what's the expectation?
I'd have to check with my team. I know it's not too long of a time frame. We definitely want to get back to them as soon as we can, but I also don't want to make up a number.
Sure.
But yeah, so we are there though. We have those analysts there that are going to investigate. And also, when you fill out a complaint, if you ever are in a place, and hopefully nobody ever is, but if you are in a place you have to fill out a complaint, be as thorough as possible, because that's going to help our team to be as thorough as possible in our review. Yeah.
Always better. Now, is there a type of insurance or concern that people may forget about, they may not know about it, but they should probably look into it in terms of getting? And, excuse me, are there problems that maybe just aren't covered by insurance?
Yeah, so I'm glad you're asking this question, because there's 2 that really come top of mind for me. I talk with my friends. I live in Chicago. A lot of my friends are living in Chicago, and I think a lot of people aren't aware of renter's insurance. It is a really critical insurance to have. It is not as cost-wise. It is not like as much of a premium as homeowners or condo, but what it's providing is that coverage for your personal stuff. Sometimes I think we operate with this blind understanding that we think our landlord is going to cover things if something happens to the apartment.
Yeah.
They will to the structure, but to the actual, your clothes, your TV, all of that.
If somebody breaks in and steals
Someone breaks in, you want to have
stuff,
that renter's protection, and you can get that personal liability insurance with renters, which that will follow you wherever you go, and it's good to have.
And by the way, renter's insurance is not that expensive.
No, it shouldn't be. It's I can't give a guesstimate, but it is definitely much lower than what a homeowner's policy is, because again, you're just getting some personal liability, that loss of use, which will help replace you while you're waiting for an apartment to be fixed.
Sure.
And then also that personal protection for your stuff.
That is great. So thank you for bringing that up, because I think that's something that at the very least most people might not have, but absolutely should have. And I know when I rented, we did have renter's insurance, but I didn't always have renter's insurance. It was until someone said it to me. And it actually was my State Farm insurance agent, because I had my car, and he's like, hey, how come you don't have renter's insurance? You should have it. And then he explained it to me, and I'm like, why don't I have this? Yes.
Yep, and that's agents, they identify those gaps, and a lot of millennials and Gen Z folks are not utilizing agents. We're seeing just an uptick of people going directly to the website for the insurance they need. They fill it out themselves, and that is totally possible. That is doable. You can do that, but I do recommend looking at the idea of an agent because of those gaps that they'll say, hey, and also you can bundle this if you want to. And
exactly,
and
I got a better deal because I bundled.
Exactly.
So my car, the rent, my mom's car. She was living with me at the time, so put everything under one insurance policy, and it actually brought down what we would have been paying if we were doing these things individually. So
exactly,
bundles aren't always good, but usually they work out to your advantage. So.
Exactly. And the other one final type of insurance, we're getting out there to state fairs and county fairs this summer to really talk with consumers about flood insurance. Floods are not covered by traditional homeowners insurance. So if something happens to your home and a flood occurs where there's a standing water, you need to have flood insurance for that. And that we get a ton of calls from folks that think that they were covered because they had the homeowners, but that one peril, that flooding, will not be covered. So you can get flood insurance through the government, through FEMA. Go to FEMA's website. They actually have the National Flood Insurance Program. And it doesn't matter if you live next to a river or if you live in the middle of a town that's not near water, anybody can get that flood insurance.
Yeah.
And sometimes private lenders have it as well.
That's great news. And I will tell you, I'm going to close with one story that happened to me personally and is a good example of how this could be catastrophic, right? My mom was on vacation. She went to Mexico. My mom lived with me. She was 87 years old. Loved going to visit her sister who lives in a senior home in Mexico in Cuernavaca, about an hour and a half south of Mexico City. And she would go like every couple months, go hang out with her sister at this like amazing, it feels like a resort, but it's actually a senior home for these seniors, right? But most of them go there and they're very healthy, but they have the ability to age in place. So my mom loved going to visit her younger sister at this facility. And so she'd go on vacation. Well, I happened to go surprise my mom over the summer and visit her with my son, who is like her, reason for living, right? And overnight, she fell, but she had her own bedroom. She fell while she was sleeping, and she broke her left arm, and she hit her head so hard against the hard tile that she had a massive brain hemorrhage. She was 87. And she required, thank God I was there to be able to make these medical decisions on her behalf.
Right.
Because I can't even imagine somebody else having that responsibility, but it was coincidental that I happened to be there when, we went to go get her for breakfast. She wasn't responding, and that's how we found her. So long story short, had to go to the hospital, had to get emergency surgery. They had to open up her brain and massive brain surgery. And it ended up costing so much money. I was out like $30,000 that we did not have or plan for or any of this, but what are you gonna do? You've gotta come up with the money and help your mom, right?
Yep.
So thank God that, pulling savings and talking to my brother and, all of us putting our money together, we're able to take care of my mother. But one thing I will always purchase and tell people to purchase when they're leaving the country is travel insurance, which I had never done. And I was not aware that her insurance that she had here in the United States would not cover her for an accident in Mexico. So I was like, hey, my mom's got really great insurance. Turns out, no, she didn't, because it does not cover, no insurance plan that I know of covers you out of the country unless if you're specifically buying travel insurance. So now, anytime I go to Mexico to visit my mom, she now lives there. She has dementia as a result now of the massive brain trauma. And she's actually in the center that she used to love going to with her sister. And it's a beautiful place. And I go visit every 3 months. But even I get insurance for myself when I travel out there, because all it takes is an instant and your entire life changes. And no matter, what your situation is, nobody's thinking about these horrific things happening and not being financially prepared for them. So it's tough. Not a good, fun story. Good news is she's doing great now. She's 89. She'll be 90 in August, and she's still going strong. She's always said we're going to have to kill her with a stick, and I think she might be right because she's doing great. But the moral of the story here is just always be prepared, and that's what this is about, preparing people to think about insurance and why you should get it, and all the different little buckets in your life that you maybe can help protect yourself from by looking into good insurance policies.
Exactly. Thank you for sharing that. I'm sorry to hear that happened to your mom. I'm happy to hear that she's doing well in the place she loves. And yeah, I think traveler's insurance, we hear about it when we go to sign up for a plane ticket to go fly somewhere, and we don't really know what that covers. So you brought up such a good, important story as to why it is a critical insurance. And just the theme of insurance, you don't think about it until you need it. So you kind of have to push yourself mentally a little bit to think through potential things so that you're just covered. If you're covered, you're going to live more stress-free because you're going to have not worrying about what circumstances are going to happen.
Well, let's make sure people are covered. Thank you for being our guest today.
Yes, thank you.
It's been awesome having you.
This was great. I hope so.
And we will see you at the next podcast and hope to see you soon.